Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and we're here live for Deep Astrology, the weekly astrology show where I channel the astrology straight to you for the week. And then, of course, we take a look at the charts, brought to you by Astro Gold, which is on iOS, Android, and, of course, on your MacBook, or you can get it on SolarFire for your PC. Thanks so much for being here today on this live show. Yes, we do it live here on Facebook. Now, this week, are you lost in time? The South Node and Saturn are in the same position in Capricorn, and this is going to go on for a little bit. Not just a week, not just a couple weeks, not just a month, a couple months here. And so we are feeling Saturn fully. And if you really look at the scheme of history, especially with astrology, this is something that, honestly, South Node and Saturn and Capricorn with Pluto here, we haven't seen this millennium, okay? So this is like, we have never felt the intensity of the grind of life, the big decisions that have been mounting in our lives. And it's weird because a lot of these decisions are about what we have to release in order for us to gain where we want to go. Now, there's a lot going on this week. The main thing is the pressure to Venus. In my opinion, there's a lot of other great things and a lot of crazy things going on, but the craziness really is this major T-square that's going to happen to Venus in its detriment of Aries. So Venus and Aries, it's a fiery position, but Venus is much more grounded and much more harmonious and chill and wants to feel good. And Aries is just like, let's bring it on, baby. But this Venus aspect square Saturn, this Venus aspect square Pluto, this Venus aspect square the moon in Cancer is going to create this major T-square. And if you even just look at the moon in Cancer, which deals with our emotions and it's at its home and with the North Node here, this is a very major conflicting element, especially regarding the relationships in our life, our projects, and major crossroads that are now here. Because I brought up right at the beginning this whole South Node Saturn thing, okay? South Node Saturn, it makes us feel that whole total decision making, that whole karmic aspect and ending karmic ties and, what needs to stop in order to move forward. Well, Venus is going to be in the middle of this craziness, and also Pluto deals with these transformational endings and these toxic purges and these releases, and Venus has to face this while the moon in Cancer, which wants to feel so good and emotionally try and find comfort in it all, is like, oh gosh, I got to square over to Venus, which is in Aries, going, oh man, I have to actually step forward into my truth, or, Cancer is where we're comfortable. It's not comfortable when it comes to Venus having to be in Aries, because Venus in Aries has to step forward and say what it wants. And Libra, the reason why Venus is at home in Libra, because it's a lot easier to say, I want this, what do you want too? Let's try and make a deal. Well, Venus in Aries isn't willing to make deals. Venus in Aries is like, sorry, I can't do this. I don't want this. And here it is making hard aspects to the moon in Cancer, where it's going to be emotionally uncomfortable about these major opposition, these big decisions with Saturn and Pluto. There is some good news, though, in the middle of this craziness, because we do have a couple great things. One is Venus will make a trine to Jupiter. That's right. But what is Venus trine Jupiter at the same time that Venus is going to square Pluto in the middle of all these T-squares, like with the moon in Cancer? Well, that there is this bigger opportunity in life. There's this bigger road. There's these really big opportunities that we have, and especially when you look at even just Saturn right now. Yes, I know it's tough. Yes, I know it's intense, but it's this energy that is really about cultivating and moving forward into, a road in our life that is more emotionally satisfying, that is more connected to who we are and what we want. And Jupiter is here saying, like, I will help you out. But Pluto and Saturn are like, yeah, you might have Jupiter's help, but our realness, our transformational decision-making is imperative, because even though it is a South Node conjunction to Pluto and Saturn, so this is more about a releasing. It is releasing about these, trying to hold on or control or keep, especially when the sun's in Taurus, right? All about being in what we hold, what we value, what we appreciate so much. But has it still got its true value? And that's hard because I think that we find value in a lot of things right now. But true value is the things that are more valuable than other things. And that's why do you think Uranus is in Taurus? And why do you think it's at its fall position? Because unfortunately, we're in a world where it is like not the way the collective should be, where this is more valuable than that, and that's more valuable than this. And that's why Uranus has a hard time in Taurus, and it's at its worst position, because how does the collective come together when it's like, this is what I have and that's what you have? Why do you think it's exalted in the opposite sign of Scorpio? Because when it all comes together and there's passion behind it, it's like, we're going to go after that in life, and we're all committed. Bam, the collective goes. Bam, everything comes together. But in Taurus, it's kind of like, well, I have stairs. How much are you going to give to me in order for you to get to that place? I've got a ladder, let's say. Well, then another person's like, well, I've got shoes. How much are you going to give me for that? There becomes this whole kind of territorial aspect with all this Capricorn and Taurus. But the good news is Mercury is going to conjunct Uranus. And this is where this awesome new story is starting to play. We just had the new moon last week in Taurus with Uranus in the same sign for the first time since the 1930s. So welcome to the new paradise and the new world that's had. And with Mercury that had went through, and I've been saying this on a lot of deep astrologies for the last 6 months, that the last 6 months for Mercury was horrible. It was not fun. So even though Mercury did go through 2 retrogrades in that 6 months, it felt like a 6-month Mercury retrograde. And we're coming out of that just for the sheer fact that now Mercury is meeting with Uranus. Finally, the higher octave of Mercury, finally an intellectual sign. But this is, of course, in Taurus, a much more earthy place. So Mercury is happier because it is meeting with Uranus to get some new ideas and, more importantly, more stimulation and dealing with more positivity. Where that even though that these are very pressuristic and very difficult choices we're making in projects, relationships, and especially the relationship front, this was a double full moon just weeks ago in Libra. That, you know, that last one a couple weeks ago was major. And look at Saturn and Pluto. They're now retrograde. And the last Saturn-Pluto was in Libra in 82 and 83. And in less than about, well, it's about 6.5 months, we're about to see Saturn and Pluto end the cycle from 82 and 83 in Libra and begin in Capricorn when they meet up in January 2020. But you're going to feel it in December as Jupiter enters into Capricorn. And so really, it's moments like these right now, like especially on this week, where you know that there is a crossroads. Because you have to confront things. You have to, because you don't want to put this on the back burner. Because if you put all this on the back burner, you're gonna realize that, you know, down the road here at the end of the year, things are going to get really intense and it's all going to come back up, and there's not going to be Jupiter support anymore, okay? Because the South Node will be in Capricorn still with Jupiter. So too many planets with the South Node. And eclipse time and all that stuff with Jupiter there and its fall position. And even though it'll make trines to Uranus in its fall position, this is not the most, you know, like, I guess you could say, like, forgiving energy that's coming up at the end of the year. So it's moments like this week where it's like there is no more time, and that's why I opened up with time. You have all the facts and data, and Mercury has finally met up with Uranus to be like, this is the real value of things. I've given you all the information. I have seen things from all corners. I no longer need to keep investigating, because Venus square Pluto, not only is this like, oh my gosh, one, I have to get to the bottom of this and I have to actually make a choice, especially in Capricorn, but it is kind of like still searching deeper, like maybe there's a little bit more that I want to search for to see if I can still hold on and have it. But Mercury and Uranus are saying, I already know the value of this thing, like why do you keep searching deeper? And that's why this is a square. It's like Venus in Aries knows what it wants, and Pluto in Capricorn wants to hold on and to reach a certain goal and achievement. But with the South Node there, it's kind of like, there's been already exposed so much that's not working. These gears aren't turning. These time systems aren't together. That when it comes to certain projects and relationships, we're seeing the fall. We're seeing the fall from this stuff. And the Jupiter aspect of positivity is actually opening us up to the new possibilities and explore new territory. And I think that there's the biggest fear of our lives right now when it comes to exploring new territory. Straight up. So you have to think of it that way. You can't be afraid, especially when this is where the universe is stepping in more than ever. Neptune is going to sextile the sun this week. So Neptune is at 18 degrees of Pisces, the last degree where it's going to come this year before it retrogrades in the middle of June. So here comes the sun this week to sextile this Neptune. And this is beautiful because this is saying, like, by us releasing so much, and you have to remember that Neptune is in great aspects to Saturn, Pluto. Neptune is now going to make great aspects to the sun in Taurus, as the sun in Taurus is going to trine Saturn this week. And so even with the sun making good aspects to the nodes, you have to see that the beginning of this week is gnarly and intense. It's going to bring up obsession. And I think that that's the number one thing of the fear, is the obsession of, even if you say you are letting go, still obsessed about like it, and you're still not letting go because you're still obsessed. So you might say you're done, or you might say you're through with some situation, but they're still kind of obsessed, or you're still trying to investigate, or there's still a lot of information you don't know. And that could bring up a lot of like very Pluto aspects with Venus, right? Like jealousy or rage or anger, especially with, you know, Mars, which has come off of the big opposition to Jupiter, and Mars is in Gemini. So it's like in an intense thought process, and it's freaking out because Mars is heading towards Cancer, where it's at its fall position. So we got a lot of energy that's kind of like funky. And honestly, with the sun trining Saturn by this weekend, it's like we need to make some major choices of release so we can come into paradise. Because here we are at the lobby of paradise, and literally the Taurus, Uranus, and all the Taurus energy and Mercury Uranus are like, it's kind of like a strip search, especially with Pluto squaring Venus, you know, in Aries. It's kind of like, let's make sure that you don't have any of that stuff that you're still obsessed with or holding on to or doesn't work anymore, because I don't want that in paradise. And I know that sounds crazy, or that might sound harsh, but we have to make choices because they're actually positive outcomes. Positive outcomes, yeah. Now, I know that when we look at all this other stuff, we got Venus by the end of this weekend, and coming into Monday, going to make a great aspect with Mars. So when Venus and Aries and Mars meet, Venus and Mars love to come together. So you got to see that on the backside of this, you know, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday kind of major pressure around this feeling good and hard decisions and projects and relationships and even your own value and even, you know, money, you know, anything that you're creating right now, it's pressure, it's at the deadline, it's at the last call, it's at the, you know, it's at the last moments here. You got to see that on the backside of this, there's so much positive. There's so much opening up. You know, this is Mercury coming into great positions. This is us starting to see clearly. It's our emotional obsessed attachments. It's our pride. To me, Saturn and Capricorn with the South Node is this toxic pride over, like, I have that. When you add this Taurus element, it's like this toxic pride over the ownership of a project, a relationship, or whatever. And not willing to let go because, no, my pride's at stake. But it's almost like with this Neptune aspect to, of course, Saturn starting to retrograde, coming back. So it's going to come back to make a nice sextile to, you know, Neptune and Saturn here. This is beautiful because in our lives and for literally centuries, we've never seen Neptune and Saturn in their home signs make a sextile. And this is our spiritual quest coming back. It's almost like we saw the spiritual quest at the beginning of the year, and then once we started to see Saturn pass Neptune, the spiritual quest, we kind of got a little bit lost and confused into a lot of this Saturn-Pluto stuff where we started to get into, oh my gosh, kind of a fear-based mentality. But we need to get out of that. This is a week about getting out of fear, getting out of the fear of endings, getting out of the fear of change, getting out of the fear of these things, because this is Taurus. This is about building a beautiful world and a great freaking life. But, you know, if we're going to hold on to crap all the time, I mean, it's not going to smell real good. I mean, how long are you going to hold on to that doggy bag full of crap and you're walking your dog everywhere? It's going to smell like crap. And especially with Neptune, it's kind of like the washing away. You know, I live in LA, and I've lived in LA many times in my life, and especially when I lived in downtown Hollywood. There are no grass. There's no grass. The grass is like pretty old, or if there is grass, it's pretty weird. And the weird part about it is everybody in LA has a little dog, and they're peeing and pooping all over the streets. Well, we don't get a lot of rain in LA. So when it cooks all the pee and it cooks all the poop on the sidewalk, it smells. And this is Neptune with the rain to wash it all away. Wash away all that dog pee and poop. Because honestly, I mean, it's kind of like we're kind of in the pooper and the shitter, however you want to look at it. So we might as well realize that things that just are not fully feeling good, and even though Neptune is about this forgiveness and this letting go, and part of that is just like forgiving, but also like having to let go, because there's a south node aspect in connection with this Neptune. And there's a north node aspect to Neptune now that's building with a trine, which is great because Cancer is about, oh my gosh, we can find home by what we release, by also releasing these old patterns. To me, Saturn and Neptune is the ultimate spiritual quest, but it also is, with the south node there, releasing our deepest actual patterns of the way that we live our lives and what we're going for and how we're going about it and how we attach to those things. Because without this changing, we're not going to be able to go forward. Uranus with Mercury is like, we need to move forward. Mars and Venus, the two lovers, right? The man, the woman. And this is kind of odd because, you know, Venus is in detriment, so it's in a masculine sign, and Mars is in a masculine sign of Gemini. But it's a neutral territory in Gemini. So there is this like excitement of unsure of like, you know, especially with Venus in detriment, like after it goes through all this craziness of like, well, I don't, it's like there's so much curiosity of what everything's going to look like. And I think that's the exciting part to look at, instead of like, oh, I know exactly what I want and whatever. This is not about really about even being able to see exactly how it's all going to come out, but understanding exactly what you don't want to have and what you do want to let go of, so you can come into the paradise with an open mind, an open curiosity, and an open white page that you could literally write whatever you want on it. And you know, everybody on YouTube, I put out there, wherever you're on Facebook, wherever, I put up my Rising Through the Darkness, my 5-year prediction video. It's 5 hours long. And in that video, I brought up that this Capricorn energy does not have backspace. It's like an old Underwood typewriter. Back in the day, if you were typing and you messed up, you had to redo the whole thing. Or when you put your hand on ink, especially when they were doing the Declaration of Independence, I wonder how many times they might have fucked that one up. With the old quill and doing the pen, and oh, I messed up this like cursive. Oh, start all over. So we're at a time in our life where it's like, there unfortunately isn't this kind of like flexibility, I'd say, of like, well, I could just keep on messing up. How many times are you gonna, how many pieces of paper are you gonna keep throwing away in your life? How many times are you gonna keep messing up to where it gets frustrating? That's how you know in your life when you're coming to these patterns where you're like, I have thrown away 40 pieces of paper on the same freaking subject and the same thing and the same issue, this relationship or this project situation or this thing, or me manifesting and my manifesting issues or whatever, because manifesting issues are everywhere. You know why? Because this is Uranus and Taurus. This is the new moon that happened in Taurus. This is showing all of us the inner parts of ourselves that we need to ascend higher. That the old way of how we've manifested our life, whether that's a dream, money, goals, relationships, all that is now completely no longer working. We have to try crazy new aspects, crazy new things. If you've never talked before as a salesman, you got to talk. If you've never done this kind of thing before, you got to do it. If you've never done that before, you got to try it. Because if you're just going to sit here and just wait and just hopefully wait for like, well, it always works this way, and it always shows up this way for me, however I manifest. Ha, 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 ha. Not to scare you, but sorry to tell you that Uranus and Taurus is saying like, I'm trying to take you to the highest echelon of manifesting, and Uranus can be an asshole because Uranus really can be disconnected from the emotional element and just be like, well, I'll just sit there and watch you. It's like the Three Little Pigs. You just want to keep having the big bad wolf blow your straw house down? Okay. Sure, that straw house used to work with, you know, little windstorms that came up. But I'm sorry, you need to go build a brick house, and you need to try to build a brick house. She's a brick house. Let's look at the charts. You know, it's funny, I didn't do a lot of social media like the last 4 days, and it felt great. You know, usually like whether it's on my Instagram, doing lots of stories and stuff, just kind of took a little bit of time off from that. And I think that's super important. So when we look at these charts, we're going to have a good time, because what we're going to do is we're going to actually show you all this, because there's a lot of aspects here to talk about and to help understand, especially this pressure on relationships, projects, how they're reaching a culmination point. But to not be scared about it, because of the beauty that's on the other side. So we're looking at May the 7th, 2019, and that's right now, today. So we got the sun here at 17 degrees, and look at this, Mercury Uranus. This is what I'm the most excited about, because remember, look at Mercury. It went through Aries, where it had hard aspects to all this stuff in Capricorn. It went through Pisces, through the retrograde, where it's at its worst position, its fall position. And went through Aquarius for only 2.5 weeks, because it was at where the sun was, where its Cassini point was, and that was super fast. So it was like, didn't get a lot. Then it went through Capricorn, had to go through all this crap. Then it went retrograde in the sign of its detriment with Jupiter, which is like too much energy for Mercury to even understand. And then it went into Scorpio, where it's really dark. And so it has made a long journey to get to a happy point. Yes, it's a happy point, because at least it's getting information finally. And we have all been in the weirdest, deepest, foggy, weird, unclear space for 6 months. I know that might sound crazy, because in the middle of Mercury going through this 6-month weirdness, Jupiter was squaring Neptune, and we're getting ready for that Jupiter-Neptune square to start happening again. And we have literally been through 6 months where it's kind of like we're flying forward in so many areas, but we don't know exactly what is the best thing, what should we do. There's a lot of shoulds. There's a lot of changing fast, like I'm doing this, no wait, I'm doing that. No, I'm doing this, no, I'm doing that. Now with Mercury and Taurus, with Uranus there, it's like, yeah, Uranus is about change, but Uranus is about like a solid change in Taurus. It's in a fixed sign, and Uranus is a fixed sign. So even though it's at its fall, Uranus does like being at least in a position of where it's like, if we're going to make this change, it's going to be concreted, right? Like, okay, cool. And so this is now a time where we're going to get lots of new insight. This is exciting for new ideas of manifesting, new projects, but also a new look at our relationship stuff. Because look at this Venus tonight as we're talking, 21 degrees. That's making that square to Saturn and South Node, which that's been coming up over the last couple days, especially Monday and even then Sunday. This really kind of weird aspect of like, whoa, these big choices of like kind of who do we align with, what projects do we align with, and the changes that are going on with this. And this has been a very hard aspect. And if we look at the moon, here it is tonight. It went through Gemini and went through the opposition of Mars and Jupiter and to the squares to Neptune. So it's been a very wild shootout. Who knows? I'm just trying to get through every moment of every second and just keep going, and Gemini, Mars, and be curious and try and figure things out. Mars has been trying to figure things out, and finally it's off of so many squares and oppositions that it's just like, okay, I've got a moment here to think. And with Mercury and Uranus meeting with Mars and the moon, this is finally giving us confidence here, believe it or not, on Tuesday, to be clear. So why do we have issues with making these choices if we're so clear now? Maybe because the clarity came really fast. I would say that that's one part of it. Like, what the fuck, out of nowhere? Like, you just drop in some, okay, all right, okay. And you know what? As an astrologer, I'm here to tell you, like, yeah, it's actually been part of it. Because I think that this whole Jupiter and Sag with the square to Neptune has been on the most craziest search in the library ever hanging out with Timothy Leary, like doing LSD and like looking through books. Like, what the fuck? Like, we were here, we were there, we were there, we were here, we were over there, then we went outside, then we walked around the library, then we went over here, and it's all over the place. But the good news is, this Mercury Uranus is kind of like coming into this weird scenario of with all this research and all this stuff and being like, and that's what Mars did too, is it confronted Jupiter and said, hey, Jupiter, yeah, I know you're on fucking some drugs. You got Neptune and Pisces squaring you. Because like Mars, you know, is in Gemini. It's not going to hold its tongue. It's not going to, you know, not say anything. And it literally was like, hey, like, do you realize what you're doing here? And then this is at the same time while Mercury's meeting up with Uranus. So it's like, look at all this information, man. We're going forward, dude. Like, if you want to stay here and just keep researching and keep getting into deep convos with yourself and, you know, keep sitting and watching, you know, shows that you're just losing your whole life to because it's almost like your only disconnect of other people's stories, whether that's through politics or whether that's through, you know, dragons and, you know, of course, Jupiter square Neptune is this imaginative place. But at the same time, it's us losing ourselves outside of ourselves to go to these imaginative places in a way because we don't want to face our own not understanding of these big visions that we have to come up with, and they're coming with major choices. So Wednesday things get more intense. It's just because the moon's going to come into Cancer, and this is its home sign. And look at that Venus here at 21:58 going to 22. And that's going to be making an exact, beginning its square here within a degree to Pluto. And this is the exact day that Uranus meets up with Mercury. This is where a bunch of insight comes. And there's no coincidence that on May 8th, Uranus and Mercury meet up right before Venus will square Pluto exactly, and then Venus will trine Jupiter. And we're going to talk about that on the next day when I get to that. But there's another aspect that the Sun and Neptune on the same day as Mercury and Uranus on Wednesday, so we need to put a triple star here today, okay, that we are now forced to kind of listen to our true intuition, start really listening to these nodes that are telling us like what feels right instead of just doing things because we feel like we have to for some sort of duty or some sort of how it's been done traditionally. I'm here to tell you all that traditional elements are not the thing to do. Now, of course, we have to keep integrity. That's a very big aspect of life right now, and I don't want to tell you that to get off of those lines, that we still have Saturn in Capricorn, we still have Pluto in Capricorn, we have to, but we don't have to do things just because. This is where this weird line is. Like, where's the book on certain things about, and where are these kind of like, I guess, and this is where morals and ethics, and especially with Jupiter and Sag, and with Saturn and Capricorn kind of get really redefined here. And not in like a very negative space, right? You'll notice it's kind of in that in-between space of where it's all just kind of being rewritten in kind of more natural human law, I guess you could say, that we don't have a book for. Like, it's like, well, my mom did this or my dad did that and everybody else does this. It's like, well, why do you have to? It's kind of like the analogy of like college, right? Like, it's like you get out of school, you graduate, and it's like you have to go to college. It's like, what? Do you really have to? I always, you know, and when I made that case to my parents, I remember on AOL, I went on the, you know, Google, and I typed up all the top, you know, successful people in the world, and they all had flunked out or quit college. So I kind of was like, well, that's my reason why, and I don't want to sit in school. I'm not a school parent. I have South London Sag, so I'm like, I already did school. I already sat on mountaintops. I already talked to monks. I already did all that crap. I'm here to do some Gemini. I want to go have some freaking fun and go talk to people and go spit out information. And I want to be curious. I want to go figure things out on my own. I don't want to have to like sit and have somebody teach me. Because that's the thing about Sag, is we're being taught. There's always a guru. There's always a teacher. There's always somebody there. And I think that that's part of the problem, is that we're hoping for some big guru or some big teacher to just save our lives. Sure, it'll give us information, but with Neptune there, you know, it's going to be bringing up a lot of things that deal with, you know, subconscious and past patterns and stuff. And it's this Gemini that is a saving grace of us having to really right now think through. And Mercury Uranus is very Gemini quality and very Aquarian, but it's in Taurus. So we're mixing this, how to connect everything together and figure everything out about what to really have, and that's going to be positive in our life, and the new spring, the new energy of life. And we can't be afraid with this Neptune Sun sextile of, like, the universe is saying, like, let's just let these things go. Let's let these things go that are no longer valid, no longer part of this forcing upon, I have to do this because. I have to do this because. I already made a commitment to this because. Like, as long as you stay in integrity and you do it of true compassion, and you're just following what feels right for you in your emotions and protection and safety and to feel good, you're fine. You're not breaking any moral codes. You're not breaking any ethical codes. You're just not requiring yourself to do duty because you have to do something. And I think that that's something that you have to really pay attention to right now, that there is a subconscious underlying, you know, embedded consciousness through the collective that is being erased right now and being rewritten. And that's what's freaking people out. Because, you know, it's a little bit red pill, blue pill, right? Like, the red pill breaks your whole conscious field of what you thought you were really in, of a matrix that was actually different than the real world, and starting to go through that. Now, this is a little bit, well, I would say it's actually at the same level, but I also, people will rebuttal me on that, but this is a time in our lives where we have to rewrite the code of ourselves. And whenever you get the Sun and Neptune, it's going to bring up subconscious stuff. So before I go into this next slide, whenever you have a PC computer, the reason why people love Apple computers is because they don't have a lot of issues because they're preset by Apple and what's called the BIOS, okay? BIOS is on the motherboard. You load the BIOS, and I'm going to give you guys a little computer little thing here. What do you think runs the fans on your computer? What do you think runs, like, which hard drive has the operating system for the computer to load when you push start? Okay? That's what's called BIOS. That's a back part of the operating system. It's not even part of the operating system in truth. It's actually part of the motherboard that's going to direct what operating system are we going to. What are we doing? Which is like in our brains, we have this subconscious part that's saying, like, I'm going to breathe right now without thinking. I'm going to make sure that I am putting enough saliva in through your body to, you know, work in all these areas. I'm going to create new cells, red blood and white blood cells, if you have a cut, to fix it. Like, we don't think about that shit. We don't do it. So in the backside of computers, you can actually go in and rewire, like, the way a computer works on a PC. So, like, you could set your CPU fan to be full blast all the time so you don't always overheat it. Have you ever noticed when you're on an Apple computer and you're sitting on your bed and you start doing a lot, or you're editing a video, or you're watching a lot, and then it's, the fan comes on? That's because the BIOS is set to, like, an automatic. It waits till it reaches a certain degree, and then it goes click, boom, fan on. Well, what if you could rewrite that fan to come on earlier? What if you could rewrite, you know, that you don't want to have Apple pop up right at the beginning when you look at your screen? You want to have the cool picture of yourself or something. I don't know, if you're a crazy egomaniac. You could do shit like that when you rewrite your BIOS. We are rewriting these back part stories of ourselves, not only on an individual level, but on a collective level. When the fan does kick on in life, who's to say when a fan should kick on in life? If you apply this into real life now, who's to say that you can't do something that you don't want to do? There's this old kind of Capricornian, I gotta do it because I gotta prove myself. I gotta prove my authenticity. I gotta prove my integrity. But there also comes a point with the North Node of Cancer where it's like, okay, you'll actually maybe either die, or you'll, like, do people really have to do certain things to prove things? Like, this is Cancer where it's like, go do what makes you feel right and special and feel comfortable. Because, yes, you can still achieve what you want to do, but you don't have to go so far to the limit Like, it reminds me of being in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and these Grail guards that drank from the Grail, and so they live 500 years or whatever, and they just sit there in a freaking cave waiting for the next person to come get the Grail, and they're just sitting there for eternity waiting. Like, that is where people are at. Maybe that guy had a whole other life, and you know, like, and it's, I mean, one thing about South Node and Pluto and Capricorn, I will say, it will give you the high honors if you want it, but will it give you the emotional satisfaction? Like, it's kind of like, and I'm going to end with this, and we'll go to the next chart, is like, you know, I race jet skis, and we laugh because we do it for pieces of plastic. The trophies are plastic. And you know what? We get a moment where we get on a podium, we take a picture, and we raced all weekend. We spent our money on gas. We almost died. We went through all that for, you know, a piece of plastic. So are you going to do that with your life about these relationships and these projects and things that you know that just are not really going to have some sort of home base or some sort of emotional satisfaction that is true just because you're going to put yourself on this duty line? Like, you don't have the duty to take care of somebody that you don't feel connected to, you know? Like, you can show compassion and show up and be like, I'm here for you, but there comes these ethical lines where it's like, you don't have to actually go too far. And I think that's what we're seeing in politics. I think that's what we're seeing in the world, is where people are pushing this so far on either side of the aisle and on either side of life. Like, everybody's going way too far to this, like, duty, ethical, like, standard that's almost requiring people to go beyond what's even a comfortable and normal, beautiful life. And this is where the pressure is. So when we actually look at Thursday, which is the big whopper day, okay? So May 9th, and that's Christopher Witecki's birthday, by the way. Mr. Soul Garden himself, my brother from another mother. I want to say happy birthday to Chris Witecki on here. May 9th, 18-degree Taurus. But this is the kicker. The moon, 19 degrees on the south, on the north node. So this is where we have to focus on that comfort zone. And it's going to come into a hard square to that Venus at 23 that day. And then it's going to be Venus square Pluto, 23. And then look at Venus trine Jupiter. That's a lot going on. And even you can start to see the sextile starting to build of the Mars and Venus too. And look at Mercury, it's come off Uranus. So we got all the information. We got the Sun, Neptune aspect, because you can see the Sun is at 1852. Here it's going to go 19, okay? So it's coming off that 1 degree already. So that's what I'm saying. Wednesday is the information. Thursday is the execution. And the pressure is going to be very difficult uncomfortably, because we almost feel like we're doing something wrong for feeling what we want to feel, or putting an end to what we don't want to hold on to anymore, what we don't feel duty about, and what honestly is just about us, like, learning to let go of what is actually not bringing us what we really want. And what is going to bring us what we want is taking the leap of faith of emotionally feeling comfortable for going towards what we identify with, and believing that we can, even though we can't see it. Especially with Jupiter, it's about beliefs, it's about understanding, but Jupiter is in that square to Neptune, remember? So we can't fully see it except through our intuition and its intuitive beliefs. And it's a knowing, it's a beyond knowing. And this is a clash with people and their beliefs. This is where people can have some really crazy belief clashes, some really crazy, intense emotional situations go on, because this is intense. With Venus square Pluto, it's putting things to an end. It's putting things to full out in the open. It's forcing wide open transparency. It's forcing things to pop up. It's forcing so much, but Jupiter's saying, don't worry. If you believe it'll be okay, and you see on the other horizon, and you tap into your intuition, and you can see the vision, you'll be okay. And with Mars, which is actually supporting Venus, with kind of this information of, like, you know what logically makes sense. You know what excites you. Let's go. And so there's a lot of support to this, actually. Even though it's pretty gnarly and intense, there's lots of clarity, there's lots of information. It's our emotions. And it's our emotions that are not because of, you know, I'm so emotionally attached. That's one, I guess you could say, but I would say that it's not the main ingredient here. That's like the basic crap. The main thing is it's the emotions that are in opposition to this feeling of, I have to do this, when you don't. I have to commit to this, when is it actually, really, logistically, and more importantly, if you actually look at the laws, whether they're natural laws, whether they're written laws, are you required to? There's a lot of situations that are going to pop up where you're going to realize, I think, especially with Venus square Pluto, that, the attachment to things, the attachment to the way that we are about things, are they, really? What's saying we have to do this? And that comes to our belief systems. So whether you're going through, let's say, a divorce, or you're going through a company and a bankruptcy, or you're going through anything that deals with something that feels like what is going to be a belief system around it that other people and other situations might not see it the same way as you. And there's a lot of obsessive tendencies with this Pluto-Venus. So it's like Pluto is kind of demanding Venus to be it's almost manipulating it with, well, look what I'll give you, or look at the fair exchange. Well, it's not even a fair exchange, really. It's Capricorn. Look what I want, and if you do this with me and you commit with me, I'll give you what you want. But it's kind of like a dirty deal. We're having an opportunity to either get out of a deal that doesn't feel good, or double down on a deal that feels dirty. It doesn't feel it just feels kind of manipulative. It kind of feels seductive, but it actually is not delivering the emotional goods. And so that's hard, because it's going to be emotionally hard to let go of that. But if you look at it and realize it's a dirty deal, it's not of the actual true integrity of who you are, because what is integrity? So this is where the line of the integrity thing goes. There's the integrity of the ethical laws, and then there's the integrity of yourself that are at a battle. That there's a way to do both, making sure that you understand that you're doing things by the law, by the book, by the natural laws. You're an ethical, great person. You're doing the right thing, whatever you're doing, and that it's the integrity of holding what feels called to you and what is about kind of an open vision and willing to go explore new territory. That's what this is about. And if you can emotionally see it from that perspective, you'll get through this, no problem. But if you are wrapped up way too emotionally and way too much into, and especially when it comes to relationships right now, and especially I think that's why my double full moon Libra video, it goes into talking to the past, to the future, that we're not through out of this, folks. This crazy relationship transit is not over. When you continue to see Venus this year, when you continue to see these aspects of Saturn and Pluto this year, with this Saturn South Node, with these big traditions and these big ideas of what we call coupling and partnering and love and romance and emotions and home and traditions, these are all being completely rewritten. And so this is bringing up this spot by the time we reach Friday where, we move to a whole different space. Venus comes off of Jupiter. Venus comes off of Pluto. And now Venus is I'm through that weirdness. Okay, I just dealt with the two biggest planets, by the way. Remember that Jupiter's the biggest planet, and Saturn's the second biggest planet. And Saturn has this Pluto aspect, which is tripled or double squared, even more, if that makes sense. It's double squared, It's intense. So Venus just went through a lot. But if you look at this Mercury Uranus, that's now done. We've got the information. Now Venus is heading towards Uranus. And Venus is heading towards Taurus, the sign that it is at home. And Mercury is here. And if we start to look around, the moon is in Leo this weekend. And this Leo moon is going to remind us that if we found the integrity of our true hearts and our true self, and we still were doing things of an ethical standard, but not living by a traditional standard that does not require you to do it, that is by some sort of unconscious or old belief system and structures that's been embedded in our consciousness for thousands of years, that is being removed. Because go find me the last time that the South Node, Saturn, and Pluto were conjunct in Capricorn. Please, especially in the last millennium, please. And if you enter into the 1000s, I mean, I'm just going to open up a can of worms here. We talk about the Catholic Church. We talk about, in a lot of religions now, creating their doctrines at that time. A lot of people think it was at the beginning, but go do the research. It's not. A lot of it is around 800 and stepping into the 1000s and then coming into that millennium of control. And so this is this whole system of how we idealize or create our life based off these kind of value systems that are belief systems, and more importantly, traditional systems that are no longer and have been the cause of why we're afraid to snip the karmic energy of our better life that's being in front of us, but we can't get there because we're too emotionally caught up in these old systems. And the moon in Leo is going to be let's remember how to have fun. I'm going to be very real with people. A sun in Taurus, a moon in Leo, it's a great time. You either feel like you're on top of the moon or not, or you feel like you're the most happiest person or not. Because the reason why, if you look at the flip, when the sun's in its dignified position, so we have this, really interesting aspect here. The sun is dignified in Leo. It's its home. Taurus is where, Venus and especially the moon is exalted. The moon's exalted there. So you get this weird kind of aspect here where it's you need to realize that happiness mixed with Taurus is, yes, we're happy when we have good energy, when we have money in our pocket. And I know that that's going to trip a lot of spiritual people out, but it's written in the stars. That's a natural thing. That's not something to actually be fuck this. That's a manifesting issue. This is where we get taught through astrology that Leo and Taurus teach us that happiness comes with what you have, of your value, of your self-worth, but also what you physically do, what you physically have. If you have something that doesn't feel good, we don't feel good. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good when I have an iPad and if there's a crack in the screen. It does not feel good, no matter how much I say it works. There's just something that's just it doesn't feel good. And so this is where this weekend with the sun that's going to trine Saturn, I'm going to show you with the moon that's going to come into a grand trine with this Venus, Jupiter, that we have this awesome opportunity now on the other side to enter the most amazing paradise in our life. But if we're not going to enter this weekend and still hold on to the dog shit from fucking the past, and we are not going to wash it away, and we're going to walk into that lobby, I'm telling you, they're not going to walk you in. Have you ever been to a club and, you walk in and, they have a dress code? Well, the dress code for paradise is please don't bring in your past life karmic shit. Please don't bring in your rules that you're following from old traditional world that's causing the disharmony in the world, causing people not to be happy, causing people to be afraid to look at the truth of life, causing you to have these crazy beliefs that you don't even know where they came from, that has no evidence at all. It's just written out and it's just, here you are, that's what it is. You don't know what was going on. So if you're basing your life off that stuff, I'd be careful, because how are you going to enter into this paradise? You're going to be in the opposite, because you know what Taurus and Leo is too? A tyrant of you know what? I'm not happy. I don't want that. Look at this. This is why. It's the king and the queen that are not happy. When I hate to use the Game of Thrones reference, but we see it in both queens. They're both, I'm sorry to say, and it's kind of ironic, they both are not, even though they try, they try to make Daenerys look like this great queen, but she obviously has this, she wants the crown more than anything, and to be the queen of the seven kingdoms, and we already know, you got another queen that just doesn't give a flying fuck. Is a tyrant and just will do whatever she can to have what she has. But that's not true happiness. And I think that this is where, you know, we're at a position in our lives where it's like you can no longer just bring in how you want things to look. That the longer we go into the 2020s and everything, the more you're going to realize that free will is really an illusion. And with the South Node in Saturn here, that fate is real. And there's the denial of fate at its highest order right now. But there's also at the same time right now people who see that fate is real. And that predetermination and that the free will choice are just at these fated moments of you choose left or right, you choose positive or negative, you choose awareness or unawareness. And that this weekend is honestly the opening up to what I would say the beginnings of an amazing new paradise. But it comes with a big test. And this test is actually supported by the universe in so many ways, because by Sunday, well, Saturday and Sunday, so the sun will try and Saturn, so we have to make a choice to enter into this. And yes, we have to carry integrity and all that stuff, but we have to have shown that we have released a lot of this old traditional systems and old karmic stuff to enter. And the moon is going to be awesomely trining Jupiter. Awesomely, we've got a minor trine here still going on, and the moon's going to come in and make this great grand trine. And so this weekend really is this moment where we can actually secure ourselves into a better world, into a better place by releasing and allowing that fate has happened, and to allow the endings of fated moments and fated things. And I think we can get caught up with this whole, you know, whether you call it, there's so many things out there, whether it's twin flames, and I'm using not just like the example of relationships, but just saying like there's all these like terms out there that are floating around because of this like fated element. Well, it's true, but at the same time that there's this fated stuff that maybe was fated to have, but also be released to get you to a higher place now that we are at this Uranus-Taurus world, that we are now into a new set of rules in a game that are being rewritten. It's kind of like showing up to Monopoly and everybody being like, let's rewrite the rules. Like, let's rewrite all these things. And let's create a better game. Let's create a better world. Let's create a better place. But if you're coming in with, oh, I'm not ready to like end stuff that I've got, and I'll be honest with you, it's jealousy, obsessive, power, control, don't want to let go of it. I want to like keep it in my pocket on the side. I'm going to try and keep it in my backpack with me. I'm going to like, or like a crazy person, like in Silence of the Lambs, I'm just going to like keep you down in a basement and, you know, put lotion on the skin. Is that what you're doing in a weird kind of way to these situations? That you just can't let go? You just can't let go? So Sunday, the moon comes into Virgo, and this is going to be a big way to come into the new week. Because with this new Taurus energy, that's really come online, and we're going to have awesome trines to the Sun, to Saturn, and Pluto to help us heal and to help us cultivate what these major fated changes have been about. And at the same token, this moon in Virgo is going to make awesome trines to Uranus, awesome trines to Mercury. And so there's a lot about us emotionally starting to see the future, what we can create, what we can build. And we have Venus and Mars making their sextile for the couple days to help us create this new story that really is not defined fully yet, because there's a lot of curiosity, there's a lot of, there actually is more flexibility when you step into this world this way. Instead of holding on to these obsessions and holding on to these things that don't, the gears aren't turning anymore. You know, it reminds me of the back of a big clock and how it, you know, it's like, and there's like noises and rust, and it's like, gosh, like no matter how much lube I put on this thing, it's just like, how much WD-40, it's still, it's like, okay, you know what, I'm done with this. I mean, how many watches have you done where no matter how much you want to keep it or whatever, it's like, are you going to keep putting new batteries in it? Or are you just like, you know, there's only very few things that we pass on through the ages, right, that are the most valuable. like pieces of art from Leonardo da Vinci. Or, you know, I just got my family crystal that goes back 200 years that my family created and brought on the Oregon Trail. Like, and that's what they did for a living. They started the first jewelry store in Baker City, Oregon, and got the first car there. And so there's all these stories. But it's like, what is the most important things to hold? The stuff that we're trying to hold right now is like, when you look at it 10 years down the road, you'll be like, why was I holding on to that fucking so hard? Like, it was actually not what I wanted. The things that we are supposed to bring back with us in life or hold on with us are things that are just undeniably like, I cannot let this go because this is like what feels good and what will bring my other generations and other generations feeling good energy and represent the understanding of whether we call that pride or whether we call that our recognition of what we've done. But these projects and these relationships and these situations that we're in that are not helping us manifest, and if you want to look at the deep truth about with your manifesting issues, it's about these things that you're still holding on to. And that's a very kind of easy, old school spiritual thing, like you must let go of something before you can build something great or get something new on the other side. Well, I'm trying to tell you that on the other side of this Friday and into this weekend is the beginnings of this awesome new thing, and to be open. This is about being open. Because if we look on Sunday into Monday, you know, it's the sun quincunxing over to Jupiter, that we have to remain open to all the possibilities of this new world. And then Venus sextiles over to Mars. So this is the culmination point Monday from the weekend. After a lot of fun, but also with the moon, it's going to oppose Neptune, to where there's a lot of questions about this reality and what feels right in our spiritual life, but we are getting into some massive grand trines. We are getting into some massive positive aspects. Look at this amazing, you know, spiritual rectangle here that I just think is amazing. I mean, honestly, with the nodes and with Jupiter, I mean, with Neptune and with the moon, and with the moon trending over to the nodes, and we're seeing sextiles that are beautiful right here. This is amazing. May 13th is the beginnings of this new beautiful world. I mean, even like the sacred geometry of it is amazing. I wish I could draw better, but you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, sure, there's some weird quincunxes, but it really is opening up ourselves in a new belief system about reevaluating the value of things, what's important. And with Mercury, you know, in a good spot, and with Mars and Venus, we got to go identify with new, exciting situations to define what we like, to define what we want, to be excited about, not to be scared. This is us getting over our fears coming into next week. This is us moving into a great new promised land and amazing transits that are coming up. And I know that's something that you all haven't heard from me in a fucking long time. I know it might sound crazy because you're so used to hearing me going like, here's this, here's that, here's this, da, da, da. I'm trying to tell you that you can feel it within yourself that this fear is unwarranted. Sure, it's got its warrants of like, it looks bad in certain ways. It looks like ships are going to fall. It looks like all of it is. It doesn't mean your whole life is. It means that there's parts of yourself that you haven't let go that are too heavy for the ship to carry and that don't have value. Like if you're going to have a ship and go like my family did on the Mayflower and the Speedwell, you're not going to carry a bunch of like lead weight. Why? Do we need lead weight? No. Like we need food only, and we need people, and we need enough rope, and we just need enough to just get the ship there. And that's what this is. And this is a cleaning out moment. This is cleaning out karma. That's what South Node and Saturn is in Capricorn, especially with Pluto there, on the deepest level. Our deepest, over a millennium, that's over 1,000 years of clearing. That's what's happening as we're talking right now. And I think that that's the most beautiful part of all this. So I just want to end with this and tell you all this, because this is the best way I could put everything. We're at a place to where, honestly, really, I don't think that there's excuses to why things are hard. Because really what's hard is just you dropping that lead weight that is no longer making you feel comfortable and make you feel good, and that you're obsessed over. It's like, why are you so obsessed about having that lead weight come on the thing? when we learn to let go with Neptune this week, when we learn to see the new plan based off releasing this old karmic purge that goes back over 1,000 years in the astrology. Over 1,000 years. That we actually can step into a true paradise. And Uranus wants new. So it's like a new building. It's like you're not going to come in a new building with your muddy shoes on and just start walking through it without like being like, hey, can you at least take your shoes off, or at least there's a little thing right here to wipe it all off? Like, come on. And we don't need to bring that energy anymore into this life. And I'm extremely excited. Yes, I know Mars is a little freaked out. It's getting a little boost of Venus. So there's definitely new projects, new partnerships, whether it's just friendships or business partnerships that are all growing, or even romantic ones that are all growing, but they don't really have like their full understanding around them yet. So don't get too worried about showing the exact understanding and the exact plan so crazy. There's a little bit of flexibility here that is allowing it to form. There's flexibility to try and understand it, but be open. Be open towards that. Don't be closed off, you know, because it's easy to be closed off after being closed off from closing a bunch of hard chapters. And this is not just a chapter or just a book. We're talking about millennium stuff here. Like, really far back. And so, I don't, some deep astrology is all about fun and games and like just me going crazy and laughter and us, to help people get through really tough times. And I'm not here to say, especially as I brought up at the beginning, like this stuff's going to get way more gnarly at the end of the year. But I'm just saying that right now, if you see clearly, this is a clear week to get over so much of the stuff that's been holding us down. So when we enter the crazy times, it's not that crazy. Because at least we're fancy free. We have energies that align with this new world, this new vision, this new better place in our life. And it's going to be a lot easier to deal with the tough times that are coming in the astrology and in the world changing and purging its old understanding of the way that it looks. It's going to be much easier when you're in a better place, you feel good, you are connected with people and projects and relationships and all these things that actually align and make sense to the world, that makes sense of this new higher place that you are advancing into. But if you haven't done your purge, it's kind of like walking around with like, poop in your pants a little bit. And that's not a fun feeling. So make sure you join highvibe.tv. Of course, this is where my daily horoscopes are, my weekly sun sign horoscopes. I have a lot of videos I'm doing. I'm doing over 20 videos a week on there. And of course, we got so many other people on there. We got tarot on there. We've got intuitive readings. We've got love. We've got, it's a lot. Everything from Future Life has moved over to highvibe.tv. It's so awesome. It's 7-day free trial. And you have control of your whole account. You literally have control. You control your account when you want to unsubscribe, when you don't, anything. Like this is like full control. You can, and I think this is where people are confused. The videos, if you subscribe, are free except for a paid video that you'll know. It'll be like a special video, like my relationship video that's been out. That's a paid video. It's a special 80-minute video I did for $9.95. And it definitely helps you understand this whole relationship thing where I go really deep into it because it takes me 80 minutes to even describe it and I could go another 80 more. I'm probably going to have to do a part 2. But the thing is on the app, when you start to see, I put it up there. If you don't want to subscribe and you want to watch my daily video or you want to watch anybody else's, we're all just throwing them up for like $1. Some of people throw them for $1.99, depends on the video, but all my dailies are $1. So you can either pay the like $6, I forgot what it is for the year subscription, like $6, $6.70 or something a month. Or if you want to just pay for the month of $10.99, or if you want to pay for 3 months for $24, like literally, like, or if you just want to watch one video for a day that's going crazy for you, You could do that. Go to highvibe.tv, go look at his horoscopes, look at me up, and you'll see my daily video there, and boom, you can buy it for $1, sign in, and bam, not be subscribed. You can just buy that video. So this whole new world of, you know, this kind of content, that's where it's all at now at highvibe.tv. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of great stuff. Android, the app's out, so we're just a couple, like, I don't know, I just tried to get a report up about, you know, where we're at with iPhone and, well, the iPad is working right now, and and your iPhone if you just go on your phone. But the actual app, which will have like no notifications and all that, is going to be up soon. But on a personal note, I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here. You know, I feel like I wish I came with a lot more comedy today or something, but I feel like today was about the truth and the depth, and that you're going to be okay. Even though when it looks scary, it looks like it all isn't going to happen, there are magical wonders this week that are going to pop up out of nowhere with this Mercury Uranus and with all these positive aspects that even though Saturn and Pluto can look like a gnarly story, which they are, when the sun trines them, they actually are going to work for us and help us. And malefic planets are challenging because they actually help do God's dirty work. And it's the dirty work of our own insecurities and our own stuff that we don't know how to let go of, that we don't know how to deal with. So we kind of have to get pushed into a challenging position to finally get over it. And this week, we have to face that with relationships, we have to face that with projects and manifesting, but we don't need to face that about the understanding of the beautiful world that is being built and that we can have now. Thanks so much for all your support. I'll see you all on highvibe.tv every day. And thanks so much. And please spread this message. And I'll see you all in the next Deep Astrology.